Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. I'm here with our host, Laura Biewer, founder of CoachMeLaura.com. Laura, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with everybody today.
Yeah, I love Tuesday mornings. This is so much fun for me. And I know Carol said she might pop in for a few minutes, but I think she is out for an appointment. So we'll probably miss her. If Carol, if you're on and you want to pop in and say hi, please do. Laura, we've got so many questions built up from last week and some ones for this week. So I know we're gonna have a lot of fun today. You've also got a great presentation for us on how to handle blank spaces on a notarized document. So before we jump in and get into all that, tell me what you're excited about this week.
Oh my God. I don't even know where to begin. First of all, I'm just excited. I'm above ground, upright and breathing. That's where I'm going to start. And that finally we have a cool break in the weather. So it is fabulously 61 degrees right now in Modesto and feels so fabulous. I can't tell you. And I'm just happy that things are going pretty well right now. Sometimes you just need that steadiness because of all the volatility that can exist with owning your own business. So right now I'm very excited about having just some steadiness in my life.
Love it. Love it. That does make a big difference. And for me, I love the flexibility of this business. Mm-hmm. If I were to really just boil down why I love being a mobile notary and loan signing agent, it's the flexibility. Making unlimited income, of course, very important. The legitimacy of this business, obviously important, but just being able to get away for a little bit. And I've shared my story a little bit when I was full-time, like just hard into this, doing 6, 7, 8, 12 signings in a day. I would take off the first week of every month because it would slow down and I would be able to just go and travel somewhere. And I had fallen away from that because I got so busy. I have a signing company now. Then I'm doing my own signings. Then I've got the course going on. So I had been forgetting to just get away and explore and adventure a little bit. In these last 2 months, I've reprioritized that, and that has been amazing. And it really has helped me connect with my business more because that's why I love my business, is giving me this level of flexibility. So I love it. So excited to be able to enjoy that. So let's go ahead and jump in now to Laura. What's this? Should we do a hard stop at 8:45 to do the presentation on blank spaces?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, perfect. Then let's jump in, guys. Last time we started with live questions. If it's all right with you, I'm going to jump in because we want to make some progress on these great questions that you guys have been submitting throughout the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to share the screen, share the presentation, and jump right in. The first one I moved up because there's a little bit of a time concern on it, and it's a scenario question, Laura. I know you love these. So I'll read this first.
Okay.
It says, I have a question regarding accepting an assignment that was rescheduled 3 times. The third time, I did not check my calendar for my availability, and I accepted the third rescheduled date for the same assignment. Later, upon checking my calendar, I find I have another commitment for the same day and time on August 24th. I never want to tell a signing service I need to give up an accepted assignment, so I'm not sure how to handle this. My current conflict on the 24th is one I can't change. It's a personal family commitment. How do you recommend handling something like this?
Well, first of all, I would just be upfront with the scheduling company that hired me, that I didn't realize I had a conflict and what are our options. One option could be, is there any flexibility in the time so that I could still accommodate this signer at a later time if that works for them? And the reason I start with the hiring company and not the signer is that they may say, hey, yeah, great, let's just do it tomorrow or later in the evening, only to find out that there's time sensitivity and there are other issues that they didn't know about. And so I got them to say yes, only to find out I'd have to call back and say no. So I always start with the hiring company to make sure there are no time-sensitive issues about getting it out same day, or if that's an issue, can I scan it back after 4 o'clock deadline? If there are no issues, is it okay to do it later or the next day? And find out if that is okay. If it is, then go back to the signer themselves and say, okay, we need to move this, reschedule this. Let me see what I can do to accommodate your schedule. Here are the parameters that I can move it around in. But one, I'd always be upfront as soon as I can to see if there are any options. And if there aren't any options, let it go. Just let the assignment go so it can happen as it needs to and move on to the next.
Love it. And for me, I'm very, very similar approach. I find that the sooner you give the information to them, the better off it's going to be for everybody. You've still got plenty of time here. It's only the 20th. There's 4 days. It's not like there's no other notaries or no other options in the area. So I just and probably have a little bit of fun with it too, because you're all in the same boat. This has been rescheduled 3 times already. So there's probably some room for empathy and just understanding what's going on, and maybe even some humor in it. Next question is from Rob. So he's curious, is anyone having any success with marketing direct to consumers? If so, are you using Yelp, Google, Nextdoor, etc.? Thank you. So I think this would be a great question for the chat window too. So if you're on the call and you've had some success with that, please feel free to jump in there and share that. And then also, I'll share some of my experience that I get to talk to. You know, every day I take coaching and mentor calls throughout the afternoon. So we get to talk about this stuff all day. And I can tell you that, yes, Yelp is powerful. Google is powerful. In fact, a lot of people have kind of even branched out on their own and started using AdWords and some of the paid advertising on Google with great success. Nextdoor was one that I used to really generate some local general notary work. And then the other components of SEO as well has been probably the most successful for general notary work. And then we can't forget the power of the directories, right, Laura? There's 3 of those directories, the 123 Notary, Notary Rotary, and Notary Cafe, that still seem to, depending on your area, they still tend to generate significant leads that at least pays for a premium membership, even though that's not required to participate. But that's powerful. Anything else, Laura, that you've been hearing?
I use all of these that are mentioned, as well as the registries that you mentioned. And of course, just my website itself, brings it in for me. I don't really use the paid ads at this time because I get enough work without it. And there's no sense in paying to get more leads that I can't handle at this time. Yeah. I want to make sure that I don't get overloaded and then I can't fulfill commitments.
Yeah, and here's what's cool about the way search engine optimization works, guys. There's so many free resources. The Google My Business suite of services, if you get intentional about that and you actually do the keyword research, and some of that stuff is tedious and it takes a lot of work. And you know why it works? Because not everybody does it. So if you really get into it, and you can tinker with it, it's not this like I got to block out 3 weeks and build a website and all of that stuff. You can always add on to it and improve upon it as you're going through it and just tinker with it. And that is, you can sometimes be rated higher than even your advertisements. Some consumers skip through the ads. They won't even look at the ads. Yeah. Straight to the top of the organic search results. Great question.
I'd like to say something about the Google My Page. The biggest thing I found that will save you money and rank you high are 2 things. Well, obviously reviews. There's a link when you do it, you can send to the customer and they can review easily. And I just learned that if you post videos and pictures consistently, it will actually rank higher than the Google ads. So I know I'm going to start doing that. But yeah, you can just post a video about your service and it's all free. That's the wonderful thing about it.
It's an amazing tool. And so I'm going to, we had a digital marketer actually provide a free 12-week training on search engine optimization catered to Notaries, and I'll include the link when I send out the email for the replay on this. It's totally free, guys. It's intense. There's one section on Google My Business that really dives into that. And Tyler talks about the importance of images, the importance of videos. And guess who owns YouTube? Google does. So when you start doing this, that cross sharing and videos and sharing videos and posting them on your page, it really helps you look like an authority site on the topic of notary. So Google's going to rank you higher than other sites that don't do that. And Google is the suite of services that I'm talking about. I just want to address that really quick. It's called Google My Business. There's all kinds of things. You got Google Pages, all kinds of things in there. The G Suite, you don't have to pay. You have to pay for that. That's for the email. You don't have to pay for that. There's tons of free stuff. Google wants you to succeed and thrive. What they really want is to connect their customers, their searchers, to what they need. So if you're that person, they're going to rank you at the top. Mm-hmm. And I've got some feedback. I just got to do some muting in here. Sorry, guys. All right, there we go. Carla, what expenses are tax write-offs now that the tax changes happened in California? Also, is it true that as notaries, we get a state tax break for the first $5,000 of signatures that we do? Laura, what have you heard?
Well, even with tax changes that are happening, whether it's California or any other state, you know, the basics are the same. If you have expenses that relate to you making money, you're going to be able to get a write-off, and if you have the appropriate documentation to support it. Regarding specifics, always check with your own CPA, the person who prepares your taxes, to verify anything that's not the norm that you think you want to take off on your taxes. Particularly make sure you meet the requirements. Like if you have an office, a home office, there are requirements in order to take that off. And so you want to make sure you're meeting all the requirements so that if you're audited, they're not going to take it back. Regarding a tax break, I'm not aware of any number like 5,000. What I am aware of is that there is an exemption for self-employed notaries on the self-employment tax for the part that you pay, you know, that extra 6.5% that you pay, for the notarial value only. Now, again, for you to understand how that works, it would be best for you to talk to your tax professional so that you know not only what it is, but whether or not it's the right thing for you to do. It is not necessarily the right thing to take that exemption, depending on where you are in your life, meaning young versus old. If you have a W-2 job that goes with this self-employment job, you know, have you contributed enough to have enough units to qualify for Social Security? There are a lot of questions about what makes this the right thing for you. So just because it's available doesn't necessarily mean you want to utilize it. Talk to a tax professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you guys are looking for those programs that help you at least track that, because data is what you need, and your tax person is going to want some data as well. You can use the Notary Gadget or the Notary Assist accounting programs. And a whole slew of other ones, of course, too. Okay, Rosemary says, I'm already certified and joined up with signingagent.com. I spend some time each day making connections and marketing. It's only been a week, but I have not heard from anyone. Is that common? Two, what else can I do? Well, I'll jump in there first on this one because so I know there's probably a lot of other things that are going on in the background. When it comes to building relationships, especially deeper, authentic ones, a week is a drop in the bucket. Yeah. So you got to allow times for these things to kind of come alive organically. And when you're just starting out, sometimes that's where people get really impatient and they think, oh, it's just not working. It's just not working. I'm not getting anything. But trust me, if you're doing it correctly, and we talk about this a lot, what correct looks like is usually requires more thought than most people put into it. It's not about getting on a bullhorn and just promoting and promoting and promoting and promoting and promoting. And especially about promoting the wrong things. I'm NNA certified. I have a criminal background check. I have 100,000 E&O. Like, those are things that are just what we call table stakes in the industry. You got to have it. We all have it. It's not differentiating you from anybody else. So when you find ways to connect with individuals, like human beings on the other side of the name tag, that's when the magic really starts to happen. And to do that, you've got to identify who you want to work with. 2, you got to find out what makes them tick. 3, find ways that you relate to them. And then 4, connect on that way, on that level, in a unique and creative way that helps drown out the rest of the noise, so you stand out. These escrow officers that are ideal customers, like attorneys, whoever you're going after, they're getting solicited by a lot of other people. And most of them are saying the same thing, probably 95%. I'm great. I'm 24 hours a day. I show up on time. I dress professionally. I have a criminal background check. I have 100,000 E&O. Find a way to make yourself stand out. Instead of talking about you, talk about them. That's a good starting point on that. And then allow this time to germinate and to really come alive, gestate. The gestation period on a relationship sometimes takes a little longer, but it's worth it when you come out on the other side. Laura, anything to add to that?
No, just the very tail end of what you said about how long it can take to perhaps see some results or fruitfulness of your efforts. And I've had some relationships that have been years in the making. And that was because it took years of investing myself into that relationship with them, not with the goal of when are they going to give me work, but rather the goal of just trying to be of assistance. And when the opportunity met up with need, and I was the one that had been there steadfastly assisting them all this time, I came up first. I'm the first one they think of to call. And so sometimes it happens quickly, but sometimes it's a long-term. And I think that long-term relationships are the transformative ones. They're the ones that make a difference and the ones that create bigger opportunities than what you might have even been thinking of in the first place.
Love it. And Thomas, actually in the chat window, actually kind of has a perfect tie-in here too, just specifically about the profile itself. And I really encourage everybody on this call to reevaluate your profile, especially the signingagent.com. And if you're paying for those directories, then invest some time into researching how to create a powerful profile. We've talked about this a little bit before, but again, that's the first thing that a lot of these signing company owners or schedulers are looking at. It's potential clients they're seeing, and you'll go through there and half of them do not have pictures. And I will tell you that if there is no picture, I skip right over it. Why do I skip right over it, guys? Because I have had some terrible situations where notaries show up and they're just not presentable. So I want to see what I'm sending in to represent me at the closing table, to represent my clients at the closing table. That's business 101. You've got to have a profile picture, even if you're terrified of selfies, whatever. You don't have to go and book a photo shoot. Just take a nice selfie picture or have a friend take a picture of it and load it in so we can see your face clearly and well dressed. And then don't just count on the defaults to be the selling feature. They all look the same. You know what I look for whenever I go into a profile after I've seen the picture? I look for the personality. So somebody who's taken a little bit of time to tell me why they're passionate about this business. Why are you here? How can you be of service to my organization? How can you give me peace of mind on this? Sorry, I'm going to mute everybody again because we got somebody talking. Sorry, Laura, you'll have to unmute again. There we go. Make your profiles a priority though, guys, because that really does make a difference. And you can use the same one on each of those directories. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to create one for this and one for that, one for LinkedIn. It can be the same one. Create one that is worth spreading around. All right, Rosemary. Fritznell says, I received my first signing appointment about a week ago from a company called National Notary Incorporated through SnapDocs. I was not familiar with this company. Is it legit? And how can I sort through the legitimate companies as a new signing agent working a full-time job? Laura, you want to take this one?
Not really, but I'll start it. First of all, you know, in my situation, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I'm very picky and choosy about who I'll take work from. And so I have my regulars, and that's really who I do my work from in the NSA world, because I can be picky and choosy. I do get calls from companies I haven't worked for before. And when that happens, I ask for them to send me information about them. I go research them. I Google their company to see if I can find them. Do they have any information about them that indicates that they're doing business? You can post on some of the Facebook forums and ask, has anybody else done work for them? Carrie Rivera has a listing, if you're a member of her website, to look to see if they're listed there. So there's a lot of different resources that you can utilize. The other thing is keep track of companies you work for yourself. And you know, one of the things I did as I became choosier is I had a list of 40, 50 companies that I was cycling through. And as I found a company was difficult to work for, wasn't paying me on time, I had to chase down my money, you know what? I fired them. And my list started getting shorter. Now, over the years, have I been stiffed? Yeah, I have, like probably every single notary. It happens. And of course, I've developed ways to go after my money if I have issues, which I use Legal Shield for that. But I do research. I don't just take a job from a company I don't know until I've done a little bit of research and checking. And there are so many more tools today than when I started. There was nothing. It was just kind of roll with it and hope you got paid. Now there is a place. And if you find out some bad information, go back and say you can't take the job. I have taken a job. And then when I found out some more information, I went back and said, you know what? Sorry, I'm not ready to work with you. They want to know why? I tell them why. Yeah. I don't say so-and-so said, but what I say is your reputation as a company working in the notary business is not strong enough for me to take my risk. When you take a job, it is like extending credit, right? And so you want to be diligent about that, and you want to make sure that they have what it seems at least to be worthiness for you to extend them that credit.
I love that. That's a really great perspective. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give a business owner is like feedback like that. They may or may not be aware of what their reputation is, but if they're committed to being of service and growing, they're going to appreciate it, even if it hurts a little bit. If they are not committed to that and their intention is to screw people over or undercut people and damage the industry, then they're not going to care anyway, and they're going to move right on. So I think that's a great gift. The other part of this too, and it kind of ties right into it, guys, is utilize your resources. Be the MacGyver notary. You know, we have all the information of the world at our fingertips. So we're not just, even though it feels like we're kind of a silo sometimes, we're not. There are tons of resources. There's the forums, there's Google. You can be a little investigator and find out a little bit information about anyone and anything, and trust your gut on it. If it doesn't feel right or look right, then it might not be right. And if you find out later that it is, you can always go back to that company in the future and start working. But you've got those lists like the notary reviews. That's a gold mine of information. Other signing agents have reviewed these companies. So you can see who's the 1-star, the ones that aren't paying, and then you can see the ones who are good and decent to work with. So, and then a lot of that information is in the forums now. A lot of the on Google, you can find that information just about anywhere. All right, Nicole says, I'm a notary in Wisconsin. I got a job request to do a loan signing Oh, a loan app signing in Minnesota. I initially turned it down, saying I wasn't a Minnesota notary. The company wrote back saying I didn't need to notarize anything. I know in Minnesota, you need a closing agent license to be a loan signing agent. Someone in the forum said I wouldn't be notarizing anything and they weren't signing the final loan document, so it was okay. They said companies, lenders just prefer to have a notary do it. What do you think? Laura, what do you think on that?
I'd have to research that to see at first glance if there are companies out there that utilize notaries because we have face-to-face experience, because we have experience collecting signatures and dates, and not because we need to notarize anything. And so the qualification of notary isn't the requirement, it's just a preference because of our experience. And if all you're doing is collecting signatures, you're not acting in the role of a notary, then jurisdiction isn't an issue anymore for us. However, I think that loan packages, loan applications, knowing that these documents specifically are in advance of actual loan documents, I would want to check further to verify that I am not creating a problem for myself by doing that. And I haven't gone out of my own state. I'd have to go pretty far to do that.
Right.
So I'm not on like the edge of the border, so I haven't had that opportunity. But I have done jobs where all they wanted me to do was collect signatures, and there was going to be no notarization at all. So I was not acting in the capacity of a notary, and I didn't have any issue with that.
Excellent.
But
Yeah.
I'd be more careful when it was loan document related. If your state has specific rules about how you need to, any requirements you need to fulfill to be part of, a loan signing, I would be concerned that it's a gray area, that they might expect it even if you're on the front end and you're not notarizing yet. But I don't know the rules for Wisconsin, so I would have to check it more completely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And
Bill?
You know what? Well, can you hear me okay? Is this fixed?
Oh, Bill, you froze?
Can you see me okay?
Particular rules on collecting signatures that I'm aware of. Yeah, he'll come back. Did anybody else have a comment about that? I guess you can't say so because he muted all of you.
Hi. Am I back?
You're back, Bill.
Okay, sorry about that, guys.
So I stopped and said, Bill, it's your turn.
Yeah, I heard you, but it just didn't work.
Hey, Laura?
Lori has a question.
I do. It's just in regards to what Laura just said. When are you not acting in the capacity of a notary? I mean, even if you are just collecting signatures, it's our job to identify the people, to verify identity. So at what point are we not acting as notaries? Even if it is just a loan application.
Well, I'm not using my title of notary on anything. I'm not filling out certificates. I'm not doing journal work. I'm not performing formalized certifications regarding documents that people are signing. I'm just there, probably bringing them documents to be signed. They're signing them, and I'm getting them back where they need to go. So I'm providing a courier service, and I'm providing a sit at the table and babysit the signer to make sure they're signing their document service. And that's not notary service. That's very different. And that's why I think this might be fine. And somebody had mentioned like I-9 forms. You're not working in the capacity of a notary, right? So there are jobs that I get called to handle that I don't notarize anything. Then I'm not wearing that notary hat. I always, though, take a little more care when I know that the documents that are being signed are part of a loan signing process, because the things I've been asked to do have been totally outside of that world. And so that's where I just would want to verify that because it's part of that process, even though it's on the front end, could there be any issue for me? If I'm in a state that has a little bit more to say about what I need, what kind of qualifications I need to have to even be part of that.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Great question, Nicole. Roy says, what are your thoughts and opinions on carrying a printer or copies in your car? And at what point would you need the inverter? You know, I'm kind of excited about this. I was able to interview one of my students in Sign and Thrive. Her name's Vernice. I interviewed her yesterday. It's going to be released tomorrow, but she is a rock star notary in Arkansas, and she has this whole setup, a full dual tray printer in her back seat, and she has the inverter. And I think I don't think there's any other way to get out of the inverter. You're going to need that because these printers take too much power just to plug into a cigarette lighter on their own. So you have the inverter there. We're going to talk about that on Profiles in Ink tomorrow. Laura, what about you? Have you ever gone to this level? Have you ever put a printer in your car?
I've never put a printer in my car. I had a portable copier in my car back in the day when I would be getting photocopies of stipulations that were needed. And not everybody had a copier in their home back then, 16 years ago. And so I had a portable copier that I actually brought into their house, plugged in, and made copies of their insurance documents and other documents that were needed to go back in the package. And it's probably been at least 5 years, if not more, since I've had to do that.
Yeah. Because
now everybody seems to have something in their home.
Right. And for me, I tried it because, I was diehard, like on the road all the time. I'm like, I don't got to stop for nothing. And I'm obviously not a big technical person. So I thought I was giving me an aneurysm. I was ready to chuck that thing on the freeway. So I finally just said, you know what? Peace of mind is worth more. I'll pick up the documents at the client's office. And that's one thing too, is, I've worked escrow direct almost entirely throughout my entire career as a signing agent. So I had the option to go to the office and pick it up. And I'd rather do that anyway to keep myself in front of my clients and to cut my printing costs. So it just didn't work out for me. But I know there are some that it works so well. When it works, and people are killing it out there. So it's kind of I think it's a personal choice again. Mm-hmm. Julia says, I really want to learn how to grow my notary business and how to properly do a general notary work appointment. How, Laura? How can he do that?
How? Oh my gosh. That would be a whole show to really give that a fair answer. Yeah. I don't think I could just do it in a minute. But what I will tell you is that whether you are performing notarizations at a loan signing or a hospital or at somebody's home, it's a power of attorney or it's estate planning, the rules of notarization don't change, really, just because the documents change or the environment change. The rules of notarization and doing that properly, meaning fulfilling your role as the notary and making sure that you come with the right tools, making sure that you recognize notary wording even when it's not yours and what to do with it, understanding identification process and all the identification alternatives available to you, always engaging with your client and making sure they're alert and aware. All of these basic things don't change based on the appointment that you take. In terms of growing that business, the more visibility, the better, And so we talked in an earlier question about Yelp and Google My Business and registries and website, and then building relationships, kicking it old school and just meeting people and finding ways to be of service to people so that should the opportunity arise, they might think of you for notary service. These things take time, and it takes a lot of different activities to pull it all together. Too many to name.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Bill?
And interestingly, I just did a YouTube live yesterday where we kind of talk about that and lay out the different ways that you can generate some revenue in general notary work. The other huge thing here, guys, is as Laura kind of mentioned earlier, there are so many more resources available. And this call happens to be one of them. But also Laura does these free skill builders, and some paid trainings too, where she dives deep into those specific documents on how to notarize those types of things. That's a resource that I know she didn't have because I didn't have it whenever I first got started on here. Get dialed into this training. It is worth it. It's worth every penny that you'd spend. But the free training, you can't even put a value on it. So you will get all these resources to show you how to do this stuff. Own your business, own to an expert level. Aim to be the expert in your area on all this different stuff. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through experience and exposure. Michael says, in a test I recently took, it intimated that there could be a place looking for a seal in one where one is not notarized or needed. When would this occur? Well, I can tell you, Michael, one of the most common places this happens is on the notary identification form and loan signing packages. Yeah. Where you fill out basically the closing agent or the signing company or somebody wants all your information. So if something goes haywire, there's a record of it. They know how to get a hold of you, and then they have a sample of your seal on that document. Most states do not allow you to do that. There's some states it's specifically illegal to do it. You know, it's in the statutes. You can't notarize a document, or you can't stamp a document that's not a notarized document, and you can never notarize your own signature. So you have a couple of options on there. And Laura, I'd love to hear your feedback on this too. Usually just not stamping it at all is an option. Everybody knows that the law says you can't do it, but they still ask for it anyway. And then a workaround, if you don't want to do that, you could stamp it and strike through it and initial it. So then it's just not out there all willy-nilly. It's just a sample. Laura, what do you think?
So option one, which is don't stamp it at all. Instead, I would write something there so that it indicates, I didn't forget it, I didn't miss it, I'm not giving it to you. And put a note with my initials that, you know, not legal to provide stamp and initial. That would be my go-to answer for anybody who asked me. I do not recommend stamping and striking, although I do know that that's a practice out there. Not my recommendation, doesn't mean you can't do it, just not mine. I prefer to always indicate why I'm not complying with something so that they know exactly what the problem is.
Perfect. Beth, what do you say when you confirm an appointment? Oh yeah, here, I did. I actually provided a sample of mine.
Yay.
We can do it, yeah, so I'll just provide this here, you too. So this is me. Hello, John and Teresa. This is Bill, the mobile notary for such and such title. I'm confirming our appointment for tomorrow at 9 a.m. And I send this out via text, usually. I always start with text. That's just my personal preference, unless I have a client that tells me, please don't text my clients. So I'm confirming our appointment for tomorrow at 9 a.m. at your home on Windermere Street. I do not add the address here because I'm not sure who I'm connecting with. So I just like to make sure first. Is that still looking good to you guys? Them. Hi, Bill. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Me. Great. Looking forward to meeting you both. Don't forget to have a valid ID like a driver's license or passport on hand. Also, for the funds due at closing, do you plan on having a cashier's check or will you be wiring the funds directly to title? Again, I can only say that if I've had the luxury of getting the documents early enough or at the time when I can confirm that. Them, we look forward to meeting you too. I have the cashier's check already. Me, awesome. See you in the morning. I'll check with you when I'm en route. Them, K, which is my personal pet peeve. Next day, me, good morning. I have coffee in hand and I'm headed your way. According to GPS, I'll be there at about 8:50 a.m. or so if all goes well. I like to add a little bit of personality. Like I say in my course, I'm starting to build or lay the foundation for a relationship right there. So I like to show some personality and that this isn't super rigid and everything. And if I get there early, it sets the expectations. Hey, I might get there early. So there might be like, oh, good, he's going to be here early. Or, hey, I'm not going to be home until 9 or 9:05 or whatever it might be. So it opens that door to communication there. Laura, what about you? How do you confirm?
I tend to do phone call rather than text, although when I have to leave a voicemail, I immediately go to text and I follow up with a text because I don't feel comfortable leaving as much information on a voicemail. I don't know who's going to hear it. So I'm a little more general on that, and then I'll follow up with a text number if they've given me a cell and not just their home number. Most people are using cell phones. And so I cover pretty much what you do. Probably the only thing that I also check is, are you the only signer, or will all the signers be there at this time? Because sometimes it'll say one person on my assignment and I get there and there's really a non-borrowing spouse or somebody else. And then they'll say, oh, I didn't know I needed them here. So I like to see if there's any possibility there's somebody not going to be there that I should know about.
Yeah,
otherwise, I hit all the same notes you do. And I probably would put valid in bold letters because people don't understand what the word valid means. And they think expired with the paper is valid. And they don't understand that there are states that can't handle that.
Yep, great points. And what was I going to say? Oh, there are what I call repeat offenders. And there this is why I love working with like OCD escrow officers, because your job as a signing agent is so much easier when your escrow officer is a perfectionist. So you don't run into as many problems. Now I've actually had to fire an escrow officer that gave me so much business, but every file, it was like a crapshoot. Like, I don't even know if I'm walking up to the right house. I don't know, there's just no communication at all. So when you get a little bit of experience, you kind of know some clients you might dive a little deeper, probe a little deeper, make sure that they've been communicated to. And then some you can relax a little bit on. Signing companies, it just kind of depends. Again, you'll see the same lenders or the same title companies sometimes, so you can set by your own experience. Okay, Jerry says, oh wait, how are we doing on time? Oh, it's
8:45.
Sorry, Jerry, I got to do a hard stop here so we can get the presentation with Laura, because this is one of those big questions that so many people ask about. Like, how do you handle blank lines? Are we supposed to fill in every line on the notarized document? All that good stuff. Laura is going to present on that now. Take it away, Laura.
Okay, well, let me, gosh, I don't know why I'm on the last page of that, but I'll put it back. Slideshow and, come on, slideshow, beginning. Let's try that. Okay, it looks like I'm getting better at this. Right at the first slide. Probably the most common question asked on Hotline, the most common question asked of people that I coach personally is about incomplete documents. And so I want to try to get a handle on it. There is going to still be some gray area that you might have to make a decision, or your signer might have to make a decision. But I did do a little bit of research on this. And first of all, what makes it incomplete? Well, obvious blank lines or spaces intentionally created between words in the sentences. So that might have actually a line there, or it might just actually be a space there. You have multiple pages and there are missing pages from a numbering sequence. So it says page 1, page 3, 4, 5. That can be an incomplete document. Addendums are mentioned, but they're not present. So most common for, say, a loan signing agent would be, it says see Exhibit A, but there's no Exhibit A for the deed of trust. They only present you the signature page. And you can tell from the top of the page that it's continued wording from a previous page. Either that, or you see the numbering, that it's more than page 1. And it's not a one-page document. So these are all examples of things that I can easily see without reading their document. So I never suggest that you read people's documents. That's not our business. But we should be checking, scanning documents, looking over documents for these blank spaces that will catch our eye. Down at the numbering, of course, we have to also be able to get pieces of information for our journals when we're journaling. So we need to see, what's the name of the document? Who's named to be the signer in the document? Where's that printed name? Where are they named in there? So there are things I have to look at. I cannot just look at the signature page and call it done. So may a notary notarize a document with a blank space? That's the question. So I'm going to tell you what I found. 23 states have a specific statute with some variation of the word no. Like that. No, you may not. So I'm not going to name them all, but on the screen you can see them all. Now there are 5 states in addition that have the words not recommended, and they're suggesting you do not. Now, one of them, I believe it's Maine in particular. Let me see what Maine had to say here. Maine says that blanks may affect the validity of the document. Notary should advise the signer of the document to be carefully understood regarding consequences of leaving blanks in a document and how it might impact the validity of the document. Ultimately, the signer must make the final decision. If blanks are left, the notary should note in their record or journal. Never use whiteout products to alter the document. If it needs to be altered, have the signer do a single strike and initial, which is the common way we do that. So I thought Maine was interesting because they're the only state that said let the signer decide if they want to deal with potential consequences.
I love that. That seems so logical to me.
Yeah. All the other ones basically said no, 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 and no. And then continually, let me just see what Wyoming, were they the other one? Where you can find these statutes, of course, is in your own state handbook. A lot of the times they're under frequently asked questions or FAQs. You'll find it there. So it wasn't very hard for me to find this information. And they usually start out with, you may not notarize a document that is, incomplete. Some state-specific notarial acts. California says the acknowledgement. You may not take an acknowledgement if the document's incomplete. But then it goes on to say, and you may not notarize a document that you know from your experience, it is obviously incomplete. So on the one hand, they named one notarial act, but then on the other hand, they said, if you have experience that tells you this is incomplete, then you need to stop. So they've given the notary the ability, based on what their expertise may be regarding documents, to decide, is that making it incomplete or not? Now, there are 22 other states I didn't mention, and they don't say anything. The law is silent. So now professional practice would step in to ask the signer to address the blank spaces. Now, the professional practice I'm going to quote from is actually from the Notary Public Code of Professional Responsibility. And that document is public. It's available to any notary who wants to download it. You can go to the NNA website resources page, their Knowledge Center page, and you can download it yourself. And this document tries to help us understand why we are asked to do what we do and the other responsibilities that are inferred by our own notary language. Article D in particular talks about potentially fraudulent documents and our role in deterring fraud. And part of that role, of course, is trying to verify it's the right person signing it. And in addition, to maintain the integrity of the document itself. So we really have kind of a twofold role in that protecting documents and document signers. And of course, we can't fulfill that role if we only look at the signature line, fill out our journal, and then stamp it. We really need to take a cursory view of the overall document and determine whether or not I can proceed. And so many of the states that said no gave also suggestions about what to say to the signer, such as, please address the blank. If they say, well, it's not supposed to be filled out, it's meant to be blank, then please address it with not applicable or an N/A, or just draw a line through it. They actually gave some specifics on how to do that. There are there are some expectations of us. We're expected to check the documents, of course, for information we'd have to collect anyways. Our role is to deter fraud. So we want to make sure they're willingly signing the document and missing information that was pertinent to the signer's statement. And I'm going to take us there because not everything will make a document incomplete. There are times when a blank can remain. So for example, extra signature lines for additional signers who aren't in front of you. Don't put a line through that. Somebody's going to have to sign it later. So leave that alone. That doesn't pertain to the signer statement. Extra notary certificates, which may be for those other signers, leave them alone. Don't do anything with them. Just use the one you need for yourself. There may be an area that doesn't pertain to the signer statement, like in a deed of trust, you might have up at the top or at the end, the area for the recorder's office, where they're going to put their stamp and write the parcel number, whatever it is they write there. That is not part of the signer's statement, and it is acceptable for that to remain for the next step in the process. Let's talk about optional sections, because that can be an issue. So I want you to think about advanced healthcare directives in particular. Sometimes powers of attorney, but mostly advanced healthcare directives. And there may be entire sections that don't apply. For instance, whether they want to donate organs, and they just don't want to deal with that. Or witnesses, but they chose to have a notary instead. Or an ombudsman, but they're not in a skilled facility, right? Some of them, the best practice would be to strike or put N/A for that area, so that nobody could go back in and start modifying those areas that were not touched before. That would be the best practice recommendation. And that comes up on that type of document in particular. That's probably the most common document I'm asked about, is that optional sections, do we need to address them? Well, if it's something that could pertain to that signer's statement, the answer is we need to address it. Now, if it's the ombudsman part, and they're not in that kind of place, I would still put N/A, even though it doesn't pertain to the statement, because at that moment we've indicated that they're not in that kind of facility. And so that's why it's okay to proceed without that ombudsman. So the more clarity we can help provide for that document, because remember, it will be utilized later. It could be challenged later. Somebody else who wasn't there with you and the signer may not read it the way it was intended. So the better job that we can do to make it clear, to make it as complete as possible, will help deter fraud, will help people from modifying documents, will add clarity for those who have to deal with that document after the fact. Okay. All right. So it was short and sweet, but I think you get the idea. Not a good idea to leave blanks. If you have to leave a blank because the signer's saying, look, it's part of the next process, like the attorney's going to sign it later, that's their part, that's fine. But note it in your journal. Anytime there's going to be something that you have left and you've noted, hey, I think this makes it incomplete potentially, but the signer's insisting that they're not supposed to do it. Another one would be for office, you know, that little section at the bottom that might say for office use only. Obviously, that's not part of the signer's statement. I'm not going to worry about that, right? So some of this, I'm going to use my own experience, which in California I can, to say, you know what, we don't need to deal with that. And other times I am going to say, you know what, we need to address this. And that's all I have to say about that.
Love it. Awesome as usual, Laura. Really great and succinct information that is actionable. I love it. Thank you for putting all that time into the research on that one. Guys, there's enough time for probably one more question. I know Diana has asked this one. She sent me a private one, and now it's public on the chat too. So maybe we can help her out with this one, Laura. This is, again, I see a lot of the comments. Great problem to have here, Diana. How do you handle going on vacation? I'm finally on a roll and have been in business for over 2 years now. My husband and I are taking a 40-day trip, and I'm worried about how to handle my absence and starting back where I left off. What are the suggestions for this? I think, well, for me, we'd have to answer the question, right? Because I think escrow direct gets handled differently, or escrow direct and general notary work gets handled differently than working with signing companies. So it depends on how your business is structured, Diana. The cool thing, I think one of the biggest perks of working with signing companies is that they are relatively forgiving for things like this. They're a lot more flexible. So you can sometimes you can automatically put yourself on away mode or vacation mode, and it's not going to have a negative impact on your future signings as long as it's communicated. When it comes to escrow direct and general notary work, Laura, let's talk about that a little bit. What do you do when you're out of town for a while?
Yeah, that's why I have friends. So my notary colleagues, for general work, I don't have a lender to deal with. I don't have to get approval. I have several go-to notaries that are in varying areas that I service. And when I'm not available, I immediately hand it over to another colleague of mine, and I let them take care of it. And fortunately for me, they return the favor. Sometimes they don't return the favor just because they need every job they get, but perhaps they return the favor in a different way. So having that in general notary work is really a must. It needs to be one of your resources, one of your tools in your bag, because I cannot be 24 hours. I cannot really do it 7 days a week. There are a lot of reasons why I'm not available. And I need to be able to be a resource to the customer. And the customer always comes back to me. I've never had an issue, although I'm very careful with who I refer to, with poaching or anything. They always end up coming back to me every single time. And then regarding my loan signing business, again, I do have go-to colleagues who have the same certifications I have. And when I'm called, I let them know, although I'm not available, have you tried Nina? Have you tried this Julie? Have you tried this person? And a lot of times they'll say, well, let me see if they're on my list. And it'd say, oh yeah, I see they're on my list. I haven't called them yet. Great, I'll call them next. But it doesn't guarantee that they're going to get the job.
Right. Yep, and that's very similar to how I handle it too with my escrow clients. I'm very protective of those, but I'm also really confident in my relationship with them because it's not just about, oh, give me a signing and give me a check and I drop off documents. There's more stuff happening here. That's where sending the cards, we go out for a happy hour about probably once a quarter or go out to dinner or something like that. I'm secure in those relationships, and that I'm secure in that if something ever happened, we would have a conversation. So I don't mind, even back before I had the signing company, I would, just put them in touch with other signing agents that could help them out. So I think that's critical too, is if you haven't been maintaining or cultivating your relationships, it's never too late. You could send them a thank you card, thanks for all the business, and then in 2 weeks you could let them know that you're leaving town. You can start that now, get really strategic on it, and then stay up on it. The challenge that we run into, especially when we're as busy as we are, guys, is that we forget to stay in touch with people. We forget that there's still a human being back there and they still want to be cared about. So we have to schedule that into our day or into our month or whatever it is, so we stay on top of it. So when these situations come up, it's no big deal. They are going to, and then the other thing too is when you're on vacation, send them a postcard. That makes all the difference. Let them know how your trip is going. Communicate with them. You're not just gone for 40 days. You are sharing your journey and experience. Yeah. All right, guys, that brings us right up to the 9 o'clock hour. Laura, that was awesome. Again, thank you so much. I know you put a lot of work into those to help all the notaries across the country get better at what we do. I appreciate it. And guys, thank you for joining us and growing yourself and your business on a Tuesday morning. We'll see you next week. See you guys.
Bye.